well I get beat up here. Which ones? Well, you're screwed. Okay. We're ready whenever you are.
All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our Tuesday, June 1st, 2021 meeting. We have a few housekeeping rules, please. We will hear 5 cases tonight. We will first have a staff report to summarize each case prior to any discussion the board members may have. We will then ask the applicant to step up to the podium to ask or answer any questions. We ask the applicant to begin by stating their name and address for the record as these meetings are recorded. We will then ask for any public participation and again ask any participant to begin by stating their name and address. And please remember the topic of discussion needs to remain pertinent to the case being heard. The purpose of the Planning and Zoning Board is to hear the cases and make recommendations to the Clay County Commission. The Commission will review and decide the cases heard tonight on June 17th, 2021 at 10 a.m. in this room. We'll begin with, could I have a roll call of attendance, please?
Yes, Chairman. Terry Griffin.
Present.
David Rodas.
Present.
Chris Higgins.
Present.
Brad Scarlett.
Present.
Marvin Davis.
Present.
And Chairman Tom Decker.
Present. Regarding the minutes of our May 4th meeting, we have a minor change to be made on page 3, as Mr. Davis was not present for the meeting, and we need to substitute Mr. Higgins' name in lieu of Mr. Davis's name. Page 3 of the May 4th meeting minutes. If I could like to call for a motion to approve the amended minutes.
Yeah, let's do a motion for that amendment, and then we'll take a roll call vote.
All right, I'm sorry. Yep. Need a motion to approve the change to the minutes.
I'll make a motion to amend the minutes.
Very well. Do you have a second?
Second.
A roll call vote.
Chris Higgins.
Approved.
David Rodas.
Approved.
Terry Griffin.
Approve.
Brad Scarlett.
Approved.
Marvin Davis.
Abstain.
And Chairman Tom Decker.
Approve.
Motion carries.
Okay. With that being said, I would like to call for a motion to approve the May 4th, 2021 minutes as amended. Could I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to approve with the amended minutes.
Very well. Do you have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote.
Chris Higgins.
Approved.
David Rodas. Approved. Terry Griffin.
Approve.
Brad Scarlett.
Approved.
Marvin Davis.
Abstain.
And Chairman Tom Decker.
Approve.
Motion carries.
The first case we will hear tonight is case number June 21-122V. And could we have a staff report, please?
Chairman, Debbie's going to give this staff report.
Very well.
Chairman, if I could attach the staff report as part of the record.
So be it.
Applicants Stephen and Brenda Waters are representing 4 other property owners. And this is up in Burdett's Addition in what we call Paradise. And it is for an unimproved, they are requesting to vacate an unimproved road right-of-way for Highland Avenue. And it's abutting blocks 4 and 5 of Burdett's Addition. And it's described as 30 feet of right-of-way. And you can see on page 3 of your staff report, you can see the lots there. And Kip has been pointing out on the aerial, the area that it is. Lots 4, well, lot 1 and 4 are owned by the Waters. Lots 4 and 5 are owned by Mr. Pettit. Lots 5, 6, and 7 are owned by Elder. And lot 8 is by the Matthews. And lot 6 and 7 are owned by the Binkards. I hope I pronounced that right. There's certain criteria in order to meet a vacation of a right-of-way. And that's in section 1513.13 of the LDC. And you can see that on page 4 with the approval criteria. This, as I said before, is an improved portion. The vacation application was noticed in the Courier Tribune on May the 13th, and utility providers were sent a letter that was dated May the 6th. Adjacent property owners within 1,000 feet were notified by a certified letter dated May the 14th. There have been no objections to this request from any utility provider. Clinton County number 4 responded that they have no objections, and Platte Clay Electric responded they have no objections either. And as I explained before, Highland Avenue is described in a legal description as 30 feet wide and 396 feet deep. And it's going to be divided between the 5 property owners. And you can see there how much of each one of them will get. Well, this unimproved right-of-way needs to be conveyed to the property owners. Usually, sometimes this is done when we convey property, it's done by plats. This will have to be done because it is public right-of-way. It would have to be done by a resolution and a deed that would need to be attached to it. And we would like to, staff would like to review that and then have it go with the property owners to record it at the Clay County Recorder of Deeds. And you can see that in Exhibit A on the recommendations. And staff recommends for the approval of it. If you have questions, the Waters are here, or I will try to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you, Debbie.
Chairman, may I add one thing?
Yes.
So this is a little bit confusing because we're using the same lot numbers on either side of this right-of-way. If you look at the plat, when Burdett's addition was platted, it was in the early 1900s, and they used blocks. So they would have this be a block, and they use the same lot numbers, so 1 through 8, and then they'd have this over here be a block, and they'd use lots 1 through 8 again. So that's the reason why you see on the exhibit lots 1, 4, 5, 6, they're all used multiple times. So I just wanted to clarify that.
All right, thank you. Do the existing property lines extend into down to the center of the right-of-way?
They do not. So that's what Debbie was talking about. We want to, we're going to convey 15 feet to each property owner, and
Okay.
planning and zoning staff will review those deeds to make sure that's done correctly.
Okay.
So the biggest problem with Paradise is these lots are so darn tiny that each lot's going to get roughly 15 feet bigger by doing this. And the highway department does not see a future road going in there for any reason, and nobody has objected to this, vacating this right of way.
Do any board members have questions for staff? Very well. Would the applicant or representative of the applicants step up to the podium, please?
Hi,
You state your name and address.
Brenda Waters, 18410 Home Street, Smithfield, Missouri, 64089.
Okay. And Brenda, do you understand the staff's report and the only, that they're basically approving your
Yes.
vacation and,
Yes.
do you have any
Waited many
questions or, do
years. Huh?
you have any questions or problems with what we're doing here?
No, I just want it done. I've waited 23 years for this.
Yeah, well, maybe tonight's the
It's
night.
not always paradise in paradise, you know?
Yeah,
We're trying to get it back to paradise.
all right. All right. Does, any board members have any questions for the applicant?
Is Paradise not a township, or is it, I mean, is it a
No,
town?
in use 2 years ago, but not anymore.
All right, very well. Thank you, Brenda.
Thank you.
Yep. Would any of the other applicants or owners like to voice their thoughts or concerns? With none, is there anyone in the audience that would like to address any issues or concerns with the case being heard? Well, if there's no further addition, I would call for a motion of approval for the road vacation of Block 4 and 5 of Burdett's Addition in Gosneyville. So if we could have a motion for approval, please.
I'll move to approve.
Very well. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote.
Marvin Davis.
Approve.
David Rhodes.
Approve petition.
Terry Griffin.
Approve with condition.
Chris Higgins.
Approved with conditions.
Brad Scarlett.
Approved with conditions.
And Chairman Tom Decker.
Approve with condition.
Motion carries.
The second case we'll hear this evening is case number June 21-123V. And we have a staff's report.
Yes, Chairman, would like to add the staff report as part of the official record.
So be it.
So this is another request. This one is to vacate a utility easement within Lot 7 of Hermitage Manor Estates. I've got it pulled up on the screen. It basically dissects Lot 7, and it's highlighted in the yellow, and it is just a utility easement. Our understanding is it was put in at the time the property was platted because Platte Clay Electric felt that they would need to put in a utility line there. That never came to fruition. It's kind of in a bad location because you see it's right in the middle of that parcel. So the request is to vacate that utility easement. Section 151-3.13 of the Land Development Code deals with vacation requests. There are 4 approval criteria. First criteria is that due and legal notice has been provided as required by this section. Second criteria is no private rights will be injured or endangered by the vacation. 3 is the public will suffer no loss or inconvenience from the vacation. And number 4 is injustice to the applicant. The vacation should be approved. This case was noticed in the Courier Tribune. Utility providers and adjacent property owners were sent letters. We have not received any objections to this request, and the Public Water District number 8 and Platte Clay Electric have both responded that they have no objections to vacating this easement. Like I said, we've received no opposition to this case thus far. Staff is recommending approval with the one condition, which is that the resolution for the vacation, if approved, be recorded when this is approved. Staff would be happy to answer any questions that you may have, and I believe the applicant is present as well.
All right, thank you, Kip. I think it's a pretty straightforward. Does any board members have any questions for staff? Would the applicant please step up to the podium?
Hi, my name is Catherine Emily Hamlin. My address is 15816 North 69 Highway, Excelsior Springs, Missouri, 64024.
All right. And Catherine, do you understand the staff's report? Do you have any questions or concerns with what we're doing here?
I just have one question about, I need to record it, is that right? I need to record it?
Kip, could you help me out? with this,
So,
please?
yes, if approved, we will record the resolution, which Debbie will help you with that process. So
Oh, all right.
We'll help you do that at the
Oh,
end.
okay. Okay, great. Yeah, that's fine, that's great.
Okay. All right,
Okay.
very well.
Okay.
Thank
Is that
you.
it?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience who would like to comment on the case being heard? With no further discussion, I would call for a motion to approve the vacation of the easement within Lot 7 of Hermitage Manor Estates with the one condition attached in Exhibit A. Do you have a motion, please?
I'll move to approve with condition.
Very well. Do you have a second?
Second.
Do you have a roll call vote?
Marvin Davis,
Approve with condition.
David Rotis,
Approve with condition.
Terry Griffin,
Approve with condition.
Chris Higgins,
Approve with condition.
Brad Scarlett,
Approve with conditions.
and Chairman Tom Decker.
Approve with condition.
Motion carries.
Next case we'll hear this evening is June 21-124 RZ/P. And could we have a staff's report, please?
Yes, Commissioner, I would like to attach the staff report as part of the record.
So be it.
Thank you. Fred and Kimberly Foster, they're requesting rezoning. And as you can see up on the screen, there is, let's see, you see a lot 1 and a lot 2. There's a house there on lot 1. And this is next to, you can see New 210 Highway, and the underground is right here in this area. This is a state highway, it's state maintained. It's called Foster Road, coming off of 210. And the Fosters would like to build a new house up here, and I believe Fred's dad lives on lot 1 right now. And they'd just like to be closer to him. So the comprehensive plan says this property is in the rural low density tier, and staff believes that the proposal is consistent with the 2008 comprehensive plan as it's proposed. As proposed, lot 2 is larger than 20 acres, and it meets the criteria for the rural density, and proposed lot 1 meets the exception of 5+ acres with an agricultural land preservation. The rezoning was properly noticed in the Courier Tribune on May the 13th. Adjacent property owners within the statutory 1,000 feet were notified by means of a certified letter on May the 14th. And there are 5 rezoning criteria the petitioner can address. The outside agency review, the Missouri Department of Transportation, has noted that they don't have any objections to regarding the access of the property. Public Water District number 5 is going to supply water. And the Clay County Public Health Center has given their preliminary and final approval for Foster Farms. Fishing River Fire District serves the property. there is, going into the property, there is a shared access that you see in through here. And that access will be for both properties. And the access driveway will need to be, need to be a driveway agreement for that, for lots 1 and 2. And we'd like it to be recorded with the final plat, and MoDOT requires a copy of that once it's recorded. It's a recommendation of staff that this request for rezoning and from agricultural to residential R5, residential ranchette R5 district with an agricultural land preservation overlay for proposed lot 1 only be approved, and the preliminary plat be approved with the following one condition regarding the shared ingress-egress agreement be recorded with a copy of the final plat, with the final plat. If the commissioners have any questions, I'll try to answer them, and Mr. Foster is here if you have questions for Mr. Foster.
All right, thank you, Debbie. I do have one question. Is the proposed shared access, ingress, egress, and utility easement, is that where the existing driveway is now that's serving the existing house on proposed lot 1?
I didn't understand that. I'm sorry. Would you repeat that?
You've got the shared access
Yes.
and utility easement. Is that where the existing, the driveway presently serving lot 1, is that where it's located?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. All right. Does anyone on the board have any questions for staff? Would the applicant, could you step up to the podium, please?
Fred Foster, 18400 Foster Road, Liberty, Missouri, 64068.
All right. And Fred, do you understand and agree with the staff's report, or have any questions?
No questions.
Okay.
Agree with it.
All right. Does anyone on the board have any questions for Mr. Foster? All right, thank you,
good?
sir.
All right,
Yep.
thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience who would like to comment on the case being heard? Make yourself known. Well, with no further discussion, I would call for a motion of approval for the rezoning of Foster Farms. If you'd have a motion, please.
I'll move to approve with conditions.
Very well. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Very well. Do we have a roll call vote?
Marvin Davis,
Approve with conditions.
Chris Higgins,
Approved.
Terry Griffin,
Approve.
David Rotis,
Approved.
Brad Scarlett,
Approved.
and Chairman Tom Decker.
Approve.
Motion carries.
Okay. And then we can roll right into the preliminary plat.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And next, I'd like to call for a motion for the approval of the preliminary plat of Foster Farms with the one condition set forth in Exhibit A. If we could have a motion, please.
I'll move to approve with conditions.
Very well. Do you have a second?
I'll second it.
A roll call vote?
Marvin Davis,
Approve with conditions.
Chris Higgins,
Approved with condition.
Terry Griffin,
Approve with condition.
David Rotis,
Approve with conditions.
Brad Scarlett,
Approve with condition.
Chairman Tom Decker.
Approve with conditions.
Motion carries.
The next case we'll hear this evening is June 21-125F. And ask for a staff's report, please.
Yes, Chairman. Can I attach the staff report as part of the record?
So be it.
Okay. Basically, this is the final plat for Foster Farms. And I don't have anything new in the findings for this final plat staff report. It's pretty much the same as the staff, as the rezoning preliminary, I'm sorry. The one condition, staff is recommending that the final plat of Foster Farms be approved with the one condition as was in the preliminary plat. And for the submittal content, it was noticed in the and property owners were sent a letter on this also. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them for you, and Fred is here again. If you have a question.
All right, thank you, Debbie. Any of the board members have any questions for staff? Mr. Foster, could you step back up to the podium, please? State your name and address.
Fred Foster, 18400 Foster Road, Liberty, Missouri, 64068.
Yes, sir. And you understand and agree with the staff's report?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any questions?
No?
All right, thank
All
you,
right.
sir.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to comment on the case being heard? With no further discussion, I would call for a motion of approval of the final plat of Foster Farms with the single Exhibit A attached to the motion. Have a motion, please.
Move to approve with conditions.
Very well. Do you have a second?
Second.
Do you have a roll call vote?
Marvin Davis,
Approve with conditions.
Chris Higgins,
Approve with condition.
Terry Griffin,
Approve with conditions.
David Rotis,
Approve with condition.
Brad Scarlett,
Approve with conditions.
and Chairman Tom Decker.
Approve with condition.
Motion carries.
The next case we'll hear this evening is case number June 21-126 CUP, and would ask for staff's report, please.
Yes, Chairman, would like to add the staff report as part of the official record.
So be it.
So this is a request for a conditional use permit for a group home Class 1 general. This property is located at 23615 Northeast 100th Street in Liberty, Missouri, 64068. It is outlined in the yellow. I just wanted to give you an idea of the general vicinity. This is H Highway east of Liberty. Right at that curve is where 100th Street comes off, and then this is the property right there. So this is a bit of a unique property. In 1998, it was approved for a conditional use permit for a monastery. So they were approved for the conditional use permit, which allowed them to construct the structure that you see on the aerial image. This house is, I guess I would consider it's a home. It's roughly 9,400 square feet. It has, I believe, 18 bedrooms. I counted 11 and a half baths. Don't quote me on the bath number, but it's a large structure that was used as a monastery until recently. The request is for a conditional use permit. The comprehensive plan tells us that this is in the rural low-density tier. It's not within a mile of the city of Liberty. There are non-residential uses listed in the rural low-density tier, which include farm service related and recreation. Also in the comprehensive plan, there's a list of basis in decision-making, which talks about expanding choice and opportunity for all persons. And it basically states that the Planning and Zoning Commission members and planning staff should strive to make decisions which increase choice and opportunity for all persons, recognize a special responsibility to plan for the needs of disadvantaged people, and urge that policies, institutions, and decisions which restrict choices and opportunities be changed. Staff believes that this proposed use of this very unique building is an appropriate way to use this building and meets that criteria that I just listed. You know, we don't see many 18-bedroom structures throughout unincorporated Clay County, so it is a unique structure. The property is zoned agricultural, and it's, I think, 13.71 acres, almost 14 acres total. The Land Development Code dictates that a conditional use permit is required for a group home. The applicant is proposing to be a little more specific about the group home. It's specifically going to be a maternity home that would house up to 15 individuals. So we'll go into a little more detail on that here in a minute, but I want to get through the code requirements first. So with any conditional use permit application, we post the case in the Courier Tribune. We send certified letters to adjacent property owners. It's handled under multiple sections of the Land Development Code, including section 151-6.1, which indicates that a conditional use permit is required for a group home class 1 in ag zoning. On page 5 of the transmittal, there are 6 rezoning criteria which should be met. And I can go into those individually if the commissioners have questions on them. We do reach out to outside agencies with each individual conditional use permit request. And we did that with this conditional use permit as well, which included the Highway Department, the Health Department, the Water District, and the Fire District. I do want to highlight the Fire District. Staff had discussions with the Fire District. I'm trying to get the staff report pulled up here. So we did have some discussions with the Fire District. They raised concerns about the condition of the alarm system, the fire escape from the upper floor, ADA compliance, access if the property is gated, and the possibility of fire suppression. So this will have to go through at least a couple different steps. The first step is the conditional use permit. This is kind of the county deciding, does this specific use make sense for this specific property? And then the second step would be anytime we have a change of use or a new tenant in what would technically be a commercial use, we're going to require a building permit to make sure that that building code, or to make sure that that building meets the building code for that specific use. So there may be a large amount of improvements that have to happen to this building to make sure that it meets the building code, because it was built in the late 90s. So there may be some improvements that have to be made. And the reason I say all that is the Fire District and the Health Center or Missouri Department of Natural Resources will be brought in at that point to review building plans to make sure the existing septic is sufficient for the use, or if they're over the amount of use on their septic system, then it may have to be permitted through Missouri Department of Natural Resources. So all of that will be handled with the building permit if the conditional use permit is granted. The applicant has submitted some additional details on their proposed use. They've submitted a business plan and a site plan. The business plan states that the facility will be able to house up to 15 pregnant women and their children. Children who are 5+ years of age would count towards that 15 total. And there will be several staff members on site as well. There'll be an executive director who will report to a board of directors from the Kansas City area that will supervise the program. There will be trained staff available on site 24 hours a day, and administrative and clinical staff available on call 24/7. The staff that would be present typically would be an administrative assistant, a case manager, an in-resident manager, an in-resident manager relief, a part-time cook and housekeeper, a therapist, and the executive director. The applicant estimates that initially, as they ramp this up, there would be 10 to 15 trips coming and going from the property with, once they get to closer to full capacity, it would be 15 to 25 trips a day. The business plan and site plan also detail some improvements that would be made to the inside and outside of the structure. They are planning on re-siding, re-roofing, redoing the entryway to make it more secure, and then adding possibly a playground, greenhouses, walking trails, vineyard, orchard, but all of that is detailed in the business plan and site plan. They have also submitted admission procedures which detail how the potential women would be admitted into the program. The planning and zoning manager, myself, and the building inspector did conduct a site visit with the applicant. Overall, the property was in good condition, and we did not notice any code violations at the site visit. There are parking requirements with the land development code. Staff believes they meet those requirements. Now, you will see that one of the conditions will be that they post the 2 accessible parking spaces. They are to have 2 ADA spaces, and that's listed as a condition. The land development code gives us details on traffic studies. A traffic study is required with zoning map amendments and preliminary plats or PUDs that are projected to generate 100 or more peak hour vehicle trips, or when the highway administrator determines that a traffic impact study is required because the proposed development will have a measurable impact on the county road system. In this case, the highway administrator has indicated that a traffic impact study would not be required, and the highway department actually provided us some car counts. They did some traffic counts on Northeast 100th Street this year, and they were about 100 vehicles per day less than 5 years ago, with that total number from 5 years ago being less than 300 cars per day. The highway department has also indicated that MoDOT is planning, has some improvements planned, if my map will update here, over here at H Highway, at that intersection of Northeast 100th and H Highway. They are planning on doing some improvements over there. I know I received a couple complaints about some potholes in the road, and according to the highway department, those potholes are within the state right-of-way, so that should be handled with that improvement in that area. Staff is recommending approval with several conditions. I do want to point out a couple of the conditions. Number 2, which would be that this would be based on 15 years. Conditional use permit typically has an expiration date. We're proposing 15 years for this conditional use permit. We would require written approval from the fire district before any occupancy permit is issued, which is number 5. We talked about the 2 ADA parking spaces. And then number 7 and 8, we would include the Clay County Public Health Center with any regulations regarding food preparation on site, and also the health center and/or Missouri Department of Natural Resources would be involved with the septic system and whether it falls under Health Department regulations or Missouri Department of Natural Resources regulations, but they would have to pull the proper permits and supply those to us before they got their building permit for the structure. Now, by no means did I go over the whole staff report. There's a lot in the staff report, and I would be happy to answer any questions that the commissioners may have. The applicant is present as well, and I believe we may have some neighboring property owners that may want to speak as well.
All right, thank you, Kip. Do any of the board members have questions for staff?
Not yet.
I would have a question, Kip, on the conditional use permit that was granted in July of 1998, and then a building was erected in August of 99 to be operated as a monastery. Was the building ever occupied and utilized as a monastery?
Yes, it was. I don't know the exact dates, but I believe it's been vacant for possibly 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
Their conditional use permit had come up, and I think they just had 1 or 2 folks living in the structure at that time. And we went back and forth with them, and they decided not to renew, and I think it was vacated at that point.
Okay. In your findings or your physical inspection on the 21st of May, that the overall property's in good condition, no code violations were observed?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the board? Would the applicant please step up and state your name and address?
My name is Matthew Lohr. My address is 8518 North Richmond Avenue, Kansas City, Missouri, 64157.
Okay, Matthew, you understand the staff's report, and you've got a few hoops to jump through to pull this off. Or do you have any questions or issues or in agreement?
Mainly just to make some comments, if that's okay.
Sure.
No, we're wanting to operate a facility to help unhoused and women who are under threat of homelessness or are under pressure to have an abortion. To support them, St. Mary's Inn for Mothers is hoping to care for them during their pregnancy and up to 1 year or more, depending on their case, to help them with case management, job placement, educational, vocational goals, etc. We plan a number of improvements to the property, probably close to $250,000 in terms of everything from walkways to outside structures of the building, the roof, other ones. But mainly, we want to provide life, and we want to support women and walk with them in the choice they're making to carry their babies. We've worked in concert with an agency in St. Louis, Missouri called Our Lady's Inn. They're actually in Defiance, Missouri. It's a more rural area, more out part of St. Louis, similar to where we are. Similar capacity requirements as well. They've operated their home for 14 years and indicated to me, their CEO, that law enforcement has been called twice to their facility. And both times were fairly unremarkable events. What we do want to stress is that more so what we're not, okay? We're not an emergency placement of women. By that I mean our capacity only goes up to 15, and if there are children there that are 5 or older, they count toward that 15. So realistically, it's probably somewhere between 10 and 12. Our clients are planning to stay there, and we're planning to support them sometimes on average a year, year and a half. So I'm anticipating we'll be at a wait list, and that there will be a screening process in place even for people who potentially want to come. Because of the length of times, we simply won't have openings to take people at all hours in this sort of piece. Plus, I think it's important, I'm a clinical social worker and psychotherapist. I'm an adjunct professor in the social work program at Park University. I've worked in social services and residential treatment for over 30 years as a psychotherapist and as an administrator. The outline that we have in place in terms of a therapist and a case manager, 2 full-time people assigned to up to 15 clients, is really excellent in terms of industry standards, in terms of the amount of clinical coverage and case management for folks. We've included support pieces as well in terms of we're not allowing any tobacco or alcohol products on our property ever, okay? We are utilizing random drug screens for both our staff and for our clients that will be there. And we're also looking at working with our neighbors in terms of, we had an open house on the 22nd of May and had nearly 100 people come to the facility. And it was really very reassuring. Many came, I had at least 3 came that were in the neighboring area that were asking about employment, and looking at job opportunities and coming to work. But more importantly, I had 3 or 4 people who talked about family situations, people in their own life that could have used this place. And we're really thankful that we were coming and that we were making this particular call. So I appreciate all your time and your attention tonight. And with that, I'll conclude.
All right. Thank you, Matthew. Does the board, anyone of the board have questions for Matthew? All right, thank you, sir.
Good, thank you.
Yep. Would anyone in the audience like to comment on the case being heard? Yes, ma'am.
Yes. My name is Elizabeth Davis. I live at 9520 Cameron Road. I've lived there for 31 years. It's a road adjacent. You take a right turn on 100th Street. I'm not very good. I live right down the block from there. I had the opportunity to go to the open house and view the house. I don't think it has 18 bedrooms presently. It's been advertised on Realtor.com having either 10 bedrooms or 13 bedrooms and 13 baths. So I think it's 10 bedrooms and 10 baths. I didn't count 18 when I was in there. They do have a basement. I don't know if they're going to plan to put some of those bedrooms down there, so I don't know. My first concern, and these are all most of my neighbors, is how many people are actually going to be living in this house. It's not that big of a house. The bedrooms, when you say 18 bedrooms, they were nuns' bedrooms. So they're big enough for a twin bed, a dresser, and a place to pray. And then they have a kind of most of them have a sink in it, and then a Jack and Jill, like a toilet and a sink. So very austere, small rooms. So I have looked at all the regs, and I cannot find a place where you have to be 5 years old to be counted as a resident. So I had talked, my neighbors and I talked a long time with the interim director who just spoke, and he said, you know, that they can bring the children they already have, and as long as they don't count as their 5, so if she has 2 or 3 children, and then she can stay a year. So there could be up to 30 to 45 people in a house. Additionally, you know, moving out there from town 31 years ago when I married my husband is a shock because it's an unincorporated area of the county, although it has a Liberty address. We have a volunteer fire department who does their best, but it's a volunteer fire department. There are not fire hydrants out there. I was very concerned when I toured the house on the 3rd floor where most of the bedrooms are out. There's no way to get out of the 3rd floor without going down a staircase in case of a fire. I'm concerned that they also put the address of the group home for women and children that will be staying there on Facebook. I've worked extensively throughout my career with every agency in Clay County that houses homeless women, including Hillcrest Ministries, Hope House, Amethyst Place, and Hillcrest Ministries, and none of them put their address on for safety reasons. I talked to the newly elected sheriff last week about how much protection we all have during and Clay County is divided into 4 districts, and each night there's either 1 or 2 officers in that district. We've been burglarized several times. It takes a long time, and we're all grown-up people who made that decision to live out in the country. It's a beautiful place. But I'm concerned about bringing women out there that don't know, and I think the count of 25 cars is, you're going to have up to 40 people there. And if you count all the people that come and go, their children are going to go to school via school bus. I don't know how many vehicles are going to be there. So when you talk about 10 bedrooms and 13 baths or 18 bedrooms, they're very small. So it'd be very difficult for a woman to have a 3-year-old and a baby and her in a very small bedroom. The water district, there are no more meters out where we live. People buy old houses and tear them down to build houses because there are no more water. The volunteer fire department does not have any access to any fire. The only fire we ever had on my road, my husband and everybody, every man on our road went out and beat it with shovels to get it to stop, and the house burnt to the ground. So I am concerned about that.
All
I'm
right.
also concerned that when I talked to the interim director, because I have dealt with Hillcrest Ministries over the years, and my job is that, they have a no alcohol, no drug policy, and I asked him about that, and he said that it'd be a case-by-case basis. I asked him if he was going to drug test women before they came, and he said no. So that was different than what he told me when the open house was just a few weeks ago.
Have you had an opportunity to review the business plan that they presented?
I have, but my most concern is how many people are actually going to be in this house, and how can our community support that many people in one place. And as for having an orchard and a garden, there's not enough water there to do anything. None of us could do any kind of improvement, a pool or anything else, because there's not any more water out there. So that's a very big concern. My concern is that they've already put their address out there, and the interim director said that he's not going to take people with a history of domestic violence. Well, that's pretty hard to tell. And again, dealt with domestic violence situations throughout my career too. And the most dangerous time for a woman is when she leaves. And if she takes his kids with her, he's going to want to go there. He's going to want to come get his kids. And he's going to want to see his kids, and he's going to be entitled to see his kids. So I don't know how many, not everybody has children with the same person. So I don't know how many people that will be coming and going. So there's just some real concerns about how much traffic there's going to be. I think there's some real unrealistic expectations that the house can house that many people. Because if they said, and the interim director also said he hoped to have 15 women the day they open, that they would have a full house. So there's going to be at least babies there for a year, and other children and staff. And I'm just concerned about the fire protection. I think it would take a lot of improvement to get that house up to code for a group home. Additionally, by statute, any group home that houses children, the county runs 2 group homes, which in the chain of command I'm in charge of, and we don't ever advertise their address. Their address is not known.
Yeah.
And for good reason. So I'm just concerned, like I said, we all made conscious decisions to live out someplace that we can't expect the fire department to come. Last time I called an ambulance for a member of my family that was having a severe health problem, it took 25 minutes for them to get there. So,
All right, well, we hear your concerns and appreciate your concerns.
And then as a selfish thing, it is going to cause a lot of traffic to a place that most of us have spent their life building a home. My husband bought our property 45 years ago, cleared the land himself, fenced it himself, and built the house himself. So, I'm just concerned. I'm sure they have good intentions. I don't know if the women are going to work. I don't know if they're going to license. I don't hear anything about them being licensed as a daycare, that they need to be licensed as a daycare if they're going to have children living in a group home situation. So I have just a lot of concerns that the people who may reach out to them in desperation may not be in the safest place.
All right.
And and the security thing they're going to do, they're going to put a gate across the driveway, but no fence. So if somebody wants to come in, they just need to park the car in the road and walk up.
All right, very well. Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello, my name is Matt Cundiff. I live at 9915 Cameron. I'm Catholic, pro-life, everything. And I apologize for my natty attire. I'm not a lawyer, I'm an electrical contractor. With that being said, we've built hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of apartments all the way up to to skilled nursing, assisted living. The building is not ADA approved, or not even close. And I mean, that was just, I only made it in the vestibule and at the entrance. And with that, I mean, I seen 5 violations right there. And $250,000 ain't gonna do it. I mean, it wouldn't do the electrical. And I apologize, maybe I missed the business plan, but when I was asking questions, there was no answers. The property's on a chip and seal road. The road's failing, like everybody mentioned on H. The water's failing. I mean, we got clay pipes and that. I mean, I'm all for it in a bit different location. I mean, it would be different if there was, I mean, medical, police, water, and all that. I mean, I don't think it's an adequate location. With that being said, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Good evening. My name's Cheryl Roberts. I live at 9918 Cameron Road. I am the property directly east of the proposed project. I won't repeat everything particularly that Mrs. Davis said, although I agree with all of it. The things that I want to mention, first of all, I think those of us who live out here and those of us who live in the unincorporated areas generally do make a conscientious decision to move to that type of an environment because it's quiet, it's peaceful, there's not a lot of traffic. And I think that having a facility in that area like what's being proposed is going to significantly increase the amount of traffic in the neighborhood. I think the estimate of 25 trips a day is severely understated. We're talking about the type of staff that the applicant was talking about having there, having the women living there. I assume they're going to have doctor's appointments. I don't know if they're going to be working or not. I think, again, they have severely underestimated the number of trips that will probably be necessary if they're at full capacity. Another concern I have, and I appreciate the fact that they have a very ambitious business plan. And I guess my concern, though, is that what guarantees do any of us have in the neighborhood that they are actually going to fulfill the business plan? For example, if we're talking about things like how many staff are going to be there, whether they're going to be on site or not, whether they're going to do drug testing, are they going to do what kind of screening are they going to do for the people who are going to be residing there? How do we know that's actually going to be put in place? And so my concern is, I guess, that it's all just, a lot of proposals and promises, and if the conditional use permit is approved, then they do not fulfill those promises. They're not doing drug screening, they're not doing appropriate screening for the women who will be living in the facility, and then we're stuck with the negative ramifications of that. One of the concerns I do have that was mentioned by Mrs. Davis is the concern with regard to domestic violence for women in these situations. I deal with families on a daily basis where children are born out of wedlock, and I can tell you that there is a lot of domestic violence, significant partner violence, stalking, harassment involved in those situations, particularly when we're talking about the at-risk women who would be in this situation where they would be, as the applicant indicated, unhomed, so to speak. And I think that there is a high risk of domestic partner involvement with the women that would be living here. And I'll speak for myself. I am concerned about safety concerns, not only for those women, but for other people in the neighborhood. If angry individuals are making trips to the neighborhood to confront either staff or the women who are living there about either their choices or leaving them or leaving the relationship or whatever that might be. So I would say, again, without reiterating everything else that's already been said, those are my primary concerns. I understand that the county approved the conditional use permit back in the 90s for the monastery, but I would submit that there are appreciable differences between the monastery use of that facility when, as again, I haven't lived there as long as most of my neighbors have, but my understanding is that there were actually perhaps maybe 10 nuns living in the facility at any one time, and that, of course, their social activities and whatnot were fairly curtailed and were limited to going to work and coming home. And so I think there's an appreciable difference between an approval of that type of a use for that property and what's being proposed today.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to comment? If you have something new to add, and stay on task.
Pardon me?
If you have something new to add.
Well, first off, I'm not a speaker, so
Okay.
bear with me.
Need your name and address, please, sir.
Bear with me. My wife and I have
Could we
lived,
get your name and address?
I'm Roger Arnold, 9815 Cameron Road, which is just down the road from the house.
Okay.
And we have lived there for 50 years. I served on the water board and different things. The water board for years have bought their water from District 7, which buys their water from Liberty. So we've been on a limited amount of water available to us for all the years. The roads, I'm concerned with the increased traffic. Our roads, 2 years ago roughly, they came out and oiled our roads and put gravel on them. Needs to be done again. So I'm concerned with the roads and the traffic. I sympathize with the ladies that you're trying to help, but I just don't feel like the country out where we live is the place for it. We're talking about doubling roughly the population of a 5-mile area where we live, and I don't think we're able to handle it. So basically, that's my feelings. That's all I have to say.
All right. Thank you. State your name and address, please, sir. Yep.
My name's Richard Dykes. I live at 9725 Cameron Road, Excelsior Springs 64024, and I'm Roger's neighbor just to the south of him there on Cameron Road. And first of all, I just want to say I appreciate what they're wanting to do. I think it's a great idea. I think it needs to be done, but my concern is again with what my neighbors have shared, with where we're at out here in the country where we're at. We've all worked very hard for what we've got, and I just don't know that place is really suited for that environment out there at this time. Most of these places aren't placed out there in the rural area. Most of them are in a town or in the urban area where a lot of these places are at. And I just want to voice my concern there that I think it needs to be placed elsewhere. So, thank you.
All right. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's John Chick. I live at 9520 Cameron Road, Excelsior Springs, Missouri. I have some concerns about 3 new topics. I'm not going to hash over what was said before. I attended the open house, and the information I got at that time is different than what has been presented to you this evening in several respects. I've heard the phrase participant of a plan. I've heard the phrase client. But what I haven't heard is the word resident. And that's what this application is about, 15 or less residents. I looked into the definitions in the code. You don't define the word resident anywhere. That's a problem. If you're going to let them have a plan participant, you're going to let them have a client, and say anybody under the age of 5 doesn't count, you've opened up the door to let them define the word resident. This application isn't about a monastery. You can't transfer that application. You can't tack it on. You need to be able to tell these people there's going to be 15 people there, period. If you have a mother and a child, that's 2. You can't say Sure, we're just going to let you define that because that's going to come back to bite you on every other application, every other zoning code enforcement where the word resident appears, because you don't have it. There are specific cases, I could give them to your counsel this evening if he wants to look at them, that specifically define what a resident is, and it's going to include everybody from that day one infant up to 5, up to whatever. That's one concern I have. The second concern I have is that for 50 years I've been a practicing attorney, and I've dealt with people that have had problems with violence, domestic violence, other violence. I represent everything up to including people that have murdered other people. So I bring to you that experience. And my concern is that if they want to start taking in women that are in problems, they're going to depend on, as the managing director told me, they're going to depend on these people telling them if they have problems or not. You can't go on CaseNet and find out anybody who's listed as being in a domestic violence situation. Your counselor will tell you that. It's for their own safety. The only time you can get on CaseNet and find anything if a final protective order has been issued, which means the man's name or the respondent's name, generally a man, is going to be listed there. If a woman wants to get away from somebody, they're just going to say we didn't do anything, and boom, you'll never be found. And you're going to have people roaming around looking, and as my wife said, that's the worst, most dangerous time to have somebody taken away, is to have a child. The application also talks about if a person has a legal guardianship, they will take them in. How are they going to find out about a legal guardianship? They're going to have to specifically depend on the honesty or dishonesty or the nervousness or the fear of an applicant. We also have an issue about what Matt was very kind. He said, there are a lot of promises and not many facts given when we went to the open house. I was told by the acting director that, sure, we're going to have these rules, drug testing, no alcohol, we're going to throw you out. And then he said, but if we think it deserves a break, we're not going to throw somebody out. So there aren't any rules. And besides that, you as zoning people can't make house rules up. You can only say, if it's an absolute thing, it's an absolute thing. Here's the printed rules. It's very altruistic. It's pie in the sky. But there's no enforcement you have here. And finally, as Matt told me when he checked into this with his realtor, the fact that this facility is going in is depressing our property values. And that's a direct effect on me. Thank you.
Sir. Mr. Lohr, would you like to comment on some of our conversation here, please?
Some of the points that I want to really to clarify is that on the real estate listing, it does list that it is an 18-bedroom home. Each woman, each mom, pregnant mom would have her own room and would share a bathroom in the adjacent room next to it. If she has, say, 2 children with her, they would go into the adjacent room next to them. They wouldn't all be in one room. Each room is equipped with a walk-in closet, a sink, vanity area, and a ceiling fan for everyone. In terms of some of the issues that were raised, I do empathize and really want to underscore that in talking with our ladies in, not only do they put their address of their facility, you can touch the thing and it'll take you how to get there, how to get to their place, okay? They've been doing this for over 40 years. They said it's a mixed message, Matt, to tell clients that, you know, we will not take you if you have an order of protection out, if you're involved in any domestic violence situation. We have newborns here. We want a tranquil environment, this sort of piece. So to then say, this is our rules, and yes, we don't publish our address, gives a mixed message to the moms. So we think that is a real important component part. I'll just underscore where, what they iterated, they've operated a maternity home in the city of St. Louis. And their plan is to eventually close that down because of many of the problems that were cited here this evening in terms of people coming over to that facility, people taking advantage of these women, in those settings, in those neighborhoods where they are at. They're looking at closing that facility and moving to a more rural area, like they are in Defiance. In terms of the other pieces, I can, again, just only, when I made the comment, and I know what he's referencing in terms of a positive drug screen doesn't mean you necessarily get kicked out, okay? Positive drug screen may mean that we're going to require you to have an assessment that are outlined in our protocols. It may require that you complete drug and alcohol assessment or you'll be removed from here. Having a positive UA, on your third day there versus having been there for a year and a half and always tested negative are a different set of circumstances. Again, we want to work with our, with referral sources, look at the long-range planning of these, for these children and for the moms. We want them to be sustainable, okay? And we're not anticipating a lot of our moms driving. One of the participants 2 weeks ago when I called Our Ladies Inn had a vehicle there. The vast majority of them do not. So it's not like all of them are going to have them. We are going to look at a titrated rate. I cannot bring this place to 15 on day one. We're going to slowly increment people in. We want them to be successful, and we want to be successful, more importantly. So we want to make sure that we're doing it in a responsible way. The last measure I want to underscore too is that we are looking to become a CARF accredited agency. In order to become a CARF accredited agency, we have to fulfill the outlines and the obligations because that's what they come in and they survey you for. And they can't survey you unless you've been in operations, I believe it's 6 months to a year. But that's our intent too, as Our Ladies Inn, is to become a CARF accredited agency, which is a hallmark in our profession in residential care. So with that, I'll conclude.
Was the copy of your letter of intent and your business plan, and then the admission procedures, were these made available to your guests at your open house?
We had not, I had shared, we were working in concert with Our Ladies Inn.
Yeah.
And we've received all of those, but no, we did not pass those out or make those available.
Okay. All right, does any board members have questions, Mr. Lohr? Yep.
Mr. Lohr, had a little, the barn, the orchard, the vineyard, the raised vegetable bed, the greenhouses. We had a little incident, or about conditional use permit with a Doug Parrott and his flock. And it was in our neighborhood, and it didn't go real well. And no offense to the county administration, but my confidence in overseeing isn't very well. Everybody, you put all this stuff down, it sounds good on paper, but whenever you go, you might have a cluttered up 20 acres by the time you get done with that.
Yeah. My hope, and my desire is that it will not be done that way. We have worked with and toured the Drum Farm Center for Children in Independence, Missouri, which is a beautifully landscaped property that has many of those items that we listed, including small livestock areas. They actually run a farmer's market there every Saturday morning. But the important piece of having these opportunities, as I call them, these are therapeutic tools for intervention. I was the clinical director at Drum Farm for 6 years and implemented many of those things in terms of the raised beds, working with the small livestock as a way of helping to heal people who've struggled with trauma.
I
And
understand.
so,
It
yeah,
sounds good.
yeah. If you have an opportunity to, I've brought our board members out and looked at the drum farm in Independence. It's really quite a remarkable place. It's very impressive in terms of, and it's very well manicured, very nicely laid out. And that's my intent, is to replicate what I helped start and do there at Drum.
I have a question. You mentioned an accreditation by CARF.
CARF.
Can you explain what that is and what that oversight agency is?
Yes, it's the accreditation, it's for residential field facilities. I've worked in agencies that have been CARF accredited, and essentially what they do is they come in and they look at all of your policies, procedures, your treatment plans. They interview your clients. They want to interview alumni. They look at every possible aspect of your agency. They'll spend usually 2 days to a week, depending on the size of your agency. And then they look at your fiscal responsibility, your accountability. They look at all aspects, billing, insurance. And what they do is they then grant you either a provisional accreditation at that time, but they come back, I believe it's every 3 years, and can spot check anytime they want to. It's also an agency that allows people to report infractions too, if there are concerns or a violation of protocols or what is happening at the facility. Residents and clients can contact CARF directly. It's similar to what other standards are, like the Joint Commission on Accreditation that do like hospital facilities. CARF do residential group home placements.
And do they have the authority to shut you down if you don't meet those standards, or is it just they take away your accreditation?
They can take away your accreditation, and they would then report that to the appropriate health department, your licensing boards, you know.
All right, any other board members have questions, Mr. Warner?
I don't have any questions, but I think if I'm going to give an opinion, and I'm going to, I guess, I think this CUP request is way different than what was approved 21 years ago. You know, in my opinion, from what quite a few people have said tonight, there could possibly be 30-plus people living in this facility, with quite a few kids that are under the age of 5. Sounds like there might be some issues with fire protection, obviously water. I get what you're trying to do, and it's a good thing. I just don't know if this is the right area, to be quite honest. And it's beautiful out there, totally understand it, but I think this CUP is just dramatically different than the original CUP that was issued to a monastery 21 years ago. And it's, asking to renew it is, in my opinion, probably not the best interest of the county.
All right, anyone else? Right. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This Kip may be the fire protection and the water supply being less than adequate, are they going to require an upgrade to the water line size? Kip, have you had any idea on that?
So we sent a case review to the water district, did not receive any comments. They did not indicate that anything would need to be done for the water. Now, I expect there's going to have to be, if approved, there would be some building code, fire code issues that would have to be addressed with the structure. I can't tell you what those are now.
Right. I would imagine there'd have to be some sort of fire suppression system in place if that was the case, if they're lacking on water.
And as I stated, all the building code, the fire code, the county's on the 2012 version of the codes, all that would have to be met with that building permit. if the conditional use permit was approved.
Correct.
I just want to underscore, my wife and I, we've raised 5 children here in Clay County. We've been residents here for over 30 years. She's a retired teacher from the Archdiocese of Kansas City, St. Joe. I maintain a business, private practice, and treat patients largely from Clay and Platte County. In my office on the campus of Maple Woods, we have deep ties and commitments to this community in terms of our church. Deacon Cummings is born and raised in Liberty in the area here. So I want you to know as well that we have a strong commitment to this area. It is important to us that we do something that's of high quality, and that's going to be something we'll be very proud of. And we want our residents, that graduate to our program to come back as volunteers and to help with some of our other moms and to serve as role models as they have at Our Lady's Inn in Defiance, Missouri. So I appreciate your time and I thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes, sir, I think we had a gentleman in the audience.
And I apologize, maybe it's just my lack of knowledge and lack of seeing the
Okay,
business
we
plan.
can get your name and address, please,
Oh,
sir.
I'm sorry, Matt Cundiff, 9915 Cameron. Anybody who lives out here knows you have to go north to go south. I mean, you have to go up Stocksdale Road, which is not a maintained road. I mean, there's as many potholes in it as there is on 100th Street. I mean, let's say, I might be pregnant. Where would I go or be taken to have the baby? I mean, what's the closest hospital? Would be my biggest question. So then
Yeah, we might try and
but
stay
if you go
on.
down
topic.
Excelsior, you gotta go JJ, which is,
Okay, and we're not going to have discussion. We'll just, you say your comments and we can, somebody else can come to the podium and address them.
Yes, sir.
Yes, John Chick again, 9520 Cameron Road, Excelsior Springs. I specifically talked with the fire chief, and he told me that this facility cannot support a fire suppression system. Would not be able to, the amount of water necessary to go through a sprinkler system will never be, the water district can't supply that water. So if there's any question about a fire suppression system, is this.
There's other alternatives other than just a highline.
What
for the
he
burn,
said
yeah.
is they would have to have a 3,000-gallon tank and a separate pumping facility that wasn't dependent on electricity
You are
to do a suppression system.
You are correct. There is other alternatives, but so yeah, you're right.
Thank you.
Right, thank you, John. Is anyone else in the audience like to comment? I think kind of I certainly respect your thoughts and your efforts and your investment, and I certainly respect the neighbors. I'm kind of in a quandary myself to do the right thing. I question if the neighbors are fully informed with the business plan that I'm looking at is dated April 29th, and the open house was on May 22nd. So there's almost 3 weeks that the business plan could have been handed out at the open house. It's questionable if the premises would pass the fire marshal or the fire district compliance, and maybe the surrounding neighbors are just not informed of the conditions of the conditional use permit, or misinformed or uninformed of the business plan that's being presented. I do know one of the conditions of the conditional use permit, the CUP may be revoked at any time based on validated public complaints for violations to the land development code or failure to abide by any listed conditions substantiated by county staff. So, I don't know if the board has any input, if we want to table it and to gain more knowledge, if we want to take a vote and vote as we see fit. Would ask for a little guidance from staff, maybe?
Well, I think the options are, yeah, there's always the option to continue it to the next month's meeting. If you want to gather more info and think about it, you know, you can always take a vote tonight as well if you think you have enough information to make that vote. So I think either are on the table at this point.
Chris, Marvin?
I'll throw my comments. I think what they're doing is a noble cause. I do appreciate where they're headed with what they want to do. I think there's probably a need for it. I also understand the neighbor's side. Nobody wants something in their backyard. It's every case, every month we have the same thing. It's a tough balance. We're an advisory board, you know, and so we don't make the final decision, but I think we've got a pretty diverse group of people here. You know, we are ultimately trying to help the commissioners decide how to move forward. I think you have a lot of obstacles ahead of you with maybe fire suppression, but that being said, that's an obstacle that you can overcome. So I can't hold that against you. It was priorly a conditional use permit before. It was monastery, a little different than what you're proposed now, but it was basically a commercial use building. So commercial use buildings change hands all the time. You know, I'm more in favor of approving it, but that's my opinion.
I think my opinion is going to reiterate that this is an advisory board, and I think it's our duty to give our opinion and then let it go to the commission, and they will make the final decision regardless of what the individual members here vote tonight.
I might add that we're a volunteer advisory board. So.
I just think that obviously the current structure bodes well for you all, and because it has 18 bedrooms, I understand why you want it. I just think that if this were a new request for new construction, for a new CUP and not basically a renewal of a CUP, I just don't think that this would be
This is a
best
new,
interest.
This is a new
I get it. It's a new CUP, but basically we're renewing the original one that was done 20, 21 years ago. But just don't think that it's in the right area. Just to me, it's a totally different use.
Mr. Rodas?
With what I got in my backyard with the Perry incident, I've got a bad taste on it. So,
What I would just remind you all is that there's 6 criteria that we run by, and you guys can take a motion to approve or deny, or if you want another month to get more information relevant to the 6 elements on page 5 of the staff report. But if you find that they have not met their burden to approve the criteria that's required, then that would be a denial. And if you believe that they have
I think the staff's recommendation is in the report. I would go ahead and call for a motion to be made to either approve or deny the conditional use permit for the St. Mary's Home of Mothers group home. If we could have a motion, please.
Motion to,
approve with conditions.
Very well. Do we have a second?
second.
Very well. Could we have a roll call vote for the approval of the CUP with the conditions attached?
Brad Scarlett,
Approve with conditions.
Terry Griffin,
Approve with conditions.
David Rotis,
Deny.
Chris Higgins,
Approve with conditions.
Marvin Davis,
Deny.
and Chairman Tom Decker.
Approve with conditions.
Motion carries.
All right, that concludes our meeting for the evening. You might, as we stated earlier, the case that we just heard will go before the county commission on June 17th, 2021 at 10 a.m. in this room. And you're all welcome to attend.
And Chairman, I just have a couple things.
Yes, sir.
The cases from last month, which include Pawpaw Hills, I think it was, Arrowhead Creek, and the Necula project, which was the conditional use permit for the stable, and the 1 5-acre lot, were all approved by the county commission. And we do already have some applications for the July meeting, so we will have a July meeting. And I think that's all I have.
All right, very well. Call for a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Very well. Roll call vote.
Marvin Davis,
Approve.
Chris Higgins,
Approve.
Terry Griffin,
Approve.
David Rotis,
Approve.
Brad Scarlett,
Approve.
Chairman Tom Decker.
Approve.
Motion carries.